Hey, what's going on, everybody? Sorry it's been so long since I've posted something, but I've noticed in the last few weeks there's actually been a few new subscribers to the channel, so I thought it'd be a good time to put something new out there, and hopefully there's some people still watching. So feedback is welcome as always, or questions, whatever. But this is a deck I do have posted on Netrunner DB. However, this is a modern version of it. I made at least one change from the Netrunner DB. Actually, a couple changes. So anyway, this is a little bit more updated. But it is a deck that I'm very proud of. I worked very hard on it and brought it to a store championship where it did quite well, actually. It lost basically one game because I lost 5 Psy games. Where if I would have won any one of those 5 games, I would have won the, or any one of those 5 Psy games, I would have won the game. So that's a rough one, I think, to lose 5 Psy games. The deck wasn't at fault there. The other one was basically a complete shutout. Just had a horrible opening hand and mulliganed into an even worse hand. And yeah, just couldn't catch up from there. They had a Sundew on a Caprice, and anyway. So I'm just going to go into the deck because it works really well for what it does. It's a little bit different than what you'll see, I think, from a quote standard Andy deck. So I think we'll just start with the fairies here. So initially I had a Mimic, which seems like, you know, a natural choice with Architect out there and a lot of low strength Jinteki, Sentries, etc. And not that Mimic is bad in this deck, but what I realized in testing it is that I wasn't always installing Mimic. I didn't always feel like I needed to put it down, or need to put it down. So it would stay in my hand a lot of times. And a few weaknesses I was noticing with this deck was clunky opening hands where I don't have enough money to really do anything useful, or, you know, I don't get a early econ card like a Sure Gamble or a Supplier. The opening hand can be rough. I'm going to have to pitch cards that I might really want. So that's rough. So I wanted to make the deck a little bit easier in that way. So Fairy was a great choice for that because it's a 0 install. Obviously, you can just drop it right out of the opening hand. Plus, it's a great card you want to have in your opening hand anyway, because now I can aggressively face check things. And the other thing too is, this is important with the rest of the deck synergy, is that once I use it, it trashes. So what's important about that is I get the MU back, which at times can actually be really important. So additionally, you know, Overmind, you'll see over here, I'll jump to Overmind a little bit here, can function as a sentry breaker. So a pretty efficient one, actually. Like, it's better than almost every sentry breaker out there, if you consider it that. The only thing I can't deal with, obviously, is Swordsman, but typically with Swordsman, I can just set it up to take net damage. I haven't run into it as a major problem yet, so maybe that'll happen and I'll need to add a Fem to this deck, but so far, Fairy and taking net damage has been enough for Swordsman for me. So anyway, moving on, one Corroder. I mean, Corroder is still the most efficient fractor in the game at this point, at least in terms of using your credits to convert it to breaking a server. I mean, Corroder is amazing. 2 influence, it's such a great card, so I don't think I need to spend too much time on Corroder. But there's Zoo 13 Keymaster, which is a really nice card in this deck. For one, it's cheap to play, so Like if I happen to have Corroder and Zoo and Fairy in my hand at the same time, and I don't have breakers down, I can actually go 1, 2, 3, run a server, and that's pretty awesome. So Zoo has a nice surprise factor. Plus, I play Link, and ultimately this can save me an MU as well. So plus Zoo's really efficient at 1 strength, 1 credit per strength, and 1 credit at subroutine. So it's a nice card. It's basically a free card once it gets into play. If I have Link, I mean, it cost me a credit, and now I have a free breaker out there. So great card. Overmind is one of the reasons why I want to make sure I'm preserving MU, because obviously if I get a Overmind down with a whole bunch of MU in play, and then it has a lot more tokens, and I can be a lot more efficient with my Overminds and keep pressure on longer, I guess, and not need to install another one. So Overmind kind of just gets me through situations. Like it could be early game, they double install something, or they double install ice on a remote and then install something and trying to rush an agenda. Dropping an Overmind and then inside jobbing that remote almost always will get you in, especially if you have enough money to deal with. I mean, let's say that, like worst case, a toll booth hits, so you're gonna have to make sure you have a good amount of money to get through anything. But you're almost always going to be able to get through a server that way, and steal their Astro or Atlas, whatever they're trying to rush. So that's a really nice play. Overmind is really strong, even if you just put it down without any MU out and it's 3 counters. To make that play to steal an Astro or an Atlas is definitely worth it. So yeah, Overmind is a really strong card. It's fun to play with. So, but I think the magic in this deck comes from playing the David here. This is a really strong card. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. I mean, everyone knows how strong it is. But what's nice about this is I don't think too many people expect this card coming from Andy, which is what this ID is. I didn't mention, but you probably saw that on the bottom anyway. But I don't think people expect to see this in Andy, based on the influence cost and Andy's lack of recursion, etc. But what Andy does have without influence is E3, feedback implants, which with these 2 cards, like Archer becomes a joke, Orion becomes a joke, Hadrian's Wall, so many different big ice that you just fly right through, and it's just amazing. I've won so many games from this combination here. And then of course E3 feedback also pairs with the Overmind counters as well. So plus it works super well with Bioroid Ice, which many people play Eli, especially in like RP and Near Earth Hub. So you know, it really breaks the efficiency of Bioroid Ice significantly, and it's just a great card. I really like E3 feedback implants. So it goes well with the next card that you're going to see, which is, I think at this time, oh no, there are 2 cards from Order and Chaos in this deck. This is one of them. Uninstall is really nice. I play 1. I started with 2. But I found that most of the time I'm usually have enough money to be able to, like, if I need to, save David counters and use other breakers to get through, and I can sort of preserve the David counters for when I really need them. But it's pretty amazing to be able to uninstall a David, drop it back down, and know you have another 3 ice that you can just sail through with your E3 feedback implants. It just saves you so much money. So uninstall is very strong. You can use it, of course, for an Overmind, which I needed to one time when I was playing against Jinteki, and they pretty much net damaged my entire breaker suite, and I had one Overmind on the table that was left from my breakers, and uninstalled it, put it back on the table, was able to finish the game off. So uninstall can save you in a pinch, plus it's very strong with David, so I like it. I think it's worth it to play one, just to have multiple Davids possibly in a game. So inside job. So I play 3. I had players ask me, is it overkill to play 3? And not at all in this deck. Certainly in certain decks, I think it is overkill to play 3, but this deck relies so much on being able to snipe things when the corp doesn't expect you to be able to get there. Plus, this deck can do a reasonable job of sort of keeping a control game on the corp maybe early. With cards like Inside Job and Overmind, they might be afraid to score things out early in a remote, in which case being able to Inside Job like a hand over a piece of ice into their HQ to get an access, that's what won me a game in the store championship. Basically had the remotes controlled and was knowing that there was going to be a couple agendas in hand after several turns. Inside Job into an Astro script, which obviously is a huge hit for a corp to lose one of those. So Inside Job is just amazing. Gets you accesses and puts early pressure on remotes when they try to rush, as I mentioned before. So 3 is absolutely worth it to have in this deck, I think. Plus it saves David counters, Overmind counters. It keeps the deck functioning a lot longer. Takes care of a lot of things. So I play 3. I can't ever see, at this point in time, at least, going away from 3 Inside Job. So here's one of the changes I made from the Netrunner DB version. This was a professional contacts, and I didn't really need that card at all. What I needed was the ability to find what I want more often, and the answer to that is right in faction with Mr. Lee. So I went with Mr. Lee instead, and then just went with the Maker's Eye for more accesses on the corp. I mean, as simple as that. I think the Maker's Eye is a great card. It's a great surprise card a lot of times. It's a great Hail Mary card. And being able to see 3 extra cards in it, or 2 extra cards in the R&D is always always a good thing. So unless you're playing maybe Jinteki, but in that case maybe it's there's still be times where you even want to use it against Jinteki, like if you keep them below 4 credits, etc. So just overall a great card, and I think a good sub at this time. Utopia Shard has become one of my absolute favorite cards because it creates a really unique ability to control the corporation once it's down. For example, if they're playing a Scorched Earth deck and they need to Sea Source, Scorched Earth you for the win, they might play Sea Source, and then you use your Utopia Shard and knock their Scorched Earths out of their hand. That can obviously kind of ruin their day. So it's a combo killer in hand. One thing sometimes you'll see corporations do is they will play like in a Near Earth deck or an HB Fast Advance deck. Instead of installing the agenda on the table and then playing a biotic labor, they will actually play the biotic labor first and then attempt to install. And if somebody plays biotic labor first, I know they're scoring, so why not pop the Utopia Shard and try and knock the agenda out of their hand? Excuse me. And then you kind of ruin their day. Also, you know, a lot of times celebrity gift, they show you a handful of agendas, drop a Utopia Shard, knock them out of their hand. I mean, it's ridiculous how functional this card is. People who play the accelerated diagnostics Jackson Howard combo, power shutdown, same thing. Kill that combo right out of their hand. So just a great card, really powerful card. You have to think about it, how to use it, I think, at the right time. But love it for everything it does, and the shards in general, I think, are really strong. Now, the Supplier is not a card that's new to me and decks that I've posted before, but it's still really strong in my opinion. I think it's even stronger in this deck in terms of how I get my econ going. But the Supplier is a tremendous econ card. You know, I put it down for 3. As soon as I get 2-3 uses out of it, I've earned its value plus. And then anything after that is just an amazing value for everything I install on it. And one of the things I had to learn how to do this deck is I have a lot of things I could put on there on the Supplier. Now, one thing I did do is I had way too many things to install on it when I first built the deck, so I've tweaked it to have more events and programs and less things to install on there, so I've lessened the load of the Supplier a little bit, but there's still times where my hand is heavy with things that I could put on the Supplier, or I could just install directly from hand. And sometimes you just gotta pay the price fully, knowing that, like for example, if I have a link in play, paying 2 for an Underworld Contacts is still a pretty good deal if I know the game is going to go another 3, 4, 5 turns. So like if I have 1 on the Supplier and 1 in hand, why not pay the 1 now, get the free 1 next turn? It sort of washes it out in terms of you know, what I paid and what I'm going to get in return next turn. So anyway, you know, don't be afraid, I guess, if you're going to play this deck. Don't feel like you have to put every single thing on the Supplier and get the absolute most value out of it, because one of the problems with the Supplier is that you can only take 1 thing off of it per turn. So you do have to wait, and then you do have to wait, for example, if you drop a daily cast, you do have to wait the next turn to reap that value. So you have to know the pacing of the game, and sort of when you're going to be getting the returns on these cards. And like if you see a deck that's going to be a long game deck, definitely take your time setting up, because who cares? You can put some pressure along the way with the inside jobs and overminds. Meanwhile, you're building up this massive inevitability of a huge econ pool. So got a little off base there, but that's kind of how the Supplier works. I mean, he's just going to discount everything along the way. Logos is a great card. It's going to give you a lot of versatility. Like, I don't play Special Order because, first of all, with 3 Overmind and David and Natural Draw and Starting Hand, I'm generally finding breakers. 3 Fairy, I'm generally getting enough to get by early. Inside jobs, again, are helping me a lot with that. So between all of that, I'm getting a lot of cards anyway, but then Logos just make sure that, like, if I really need a breaker, I can get it. If I really need my David, I can get it. If I really need my E3, I can get it. Other cards I've gotten before, Utopia Shard, definitely gotten that card. Mr. Lee's a card I'll grab because that'll help me get everything else. And sometimes I'll grab the Supplier if I really need to get that early. Of course, I'll grab the R&D interfaces, maybe a Maker's Eye if I need it, or a Legwork if I know they have agendas in hand. Obviously, Carapace, I'll grab that if I'm playing against a Wayland deck. So, Logos is just a fantastic card. The +1 hand size is also really nice. Having a big hand is just generally better. It allows you to piece more combos together, which definitely this deck is doing at times. So the only thing you got to watch out for is Sweep Sweep and Komainu, but you can play around that. So moving on to R&D interface, great card. Obviously puts a lot of pressure on the corporation. The name of the game of being a runner is accessing cards, and this literally helps you access more cards. Being able to install it for 2 credits on a Supplier again is really awesome. So it helps immensely. I mean, it's just a really good card. I've considered playing a 3rd R&D interface, but again, I want to take a little pressure off the Supplier. And I think the Maker's Eye offers a nice surprise factor, and I don't know, I just like it right now, so I'm going to keep it and keep trying it. Dyson Memchip. This card is an all-star in this deck because if you haven't seen it by now, I'm playing Data Folding, which requires MU to trigger, of course, and then I have Overmind, which requires MU to get counters. Then I have other breakers I want to be able to fit in and still be able to reap my rewards from Data Folding. So plus the Link fires on, turns on Underworld Contacts, as well as turns on the Cloud ability of Zoo. So Dyson is a very powerful card in this deck. It gets a lot of things done for me. Just having one in play makes a huge difference in terms of how my deck functions. If I can get a few in early and then launch an Overmind that keeps that Overmind going strong for a while, that can be really nice too. So I mean, Dyson is a great card. It's a card that I occasionally will even Logos for if I really feel like I need to. So just there, look at the flavor text. Archaic but reliable. I think that's a perfect description of the card, actually. I've never really noticed the flavor text, but bravo, FFG. That is well said. Legwork. So Legwork was one of those cards that I switched from HQ interface to take some pressure off the Supplier. Legwork goes really well with Overmind. Like if I know they have some agendas in their hand and I can get an Overmind down and play a Legwork early, then that's a nice way to put some pressure on. So, or if like, you know, they res an Ice Wall or a Wraparound or something on HQ or a Baco, and I happen to have my Corroder in hand, it can put some good early pressure. They res a Quandary and I have my Zoo, etc. So, I mean, Legwork is, we all knew how good it was when it came out. And it's still that good. It's a great card, just as the Maker's Eye. So these are probably 2 of the most solid cards in the game. Anyway, moving on. I talked about Mr. Lee a little bit. This is my one draw engine other than Logos and Natural Draw. But this is a card that I think I can Logos for a lot, depending on the game state and what else is going on. But the thing about Mr. Lee is that it allows me to get all my pieces, or the card that I really need at the right time, or helps me keep growing my massive econ or whatever. Just the ability to draw 2 cards at once is so strong. So this card is far and away the best way to draw in this deck, in my opinion. So even better than Professional Contacts, which gives you money and costs more and would be influence here. I think Mr. Lee's even better. So that's why I went with it. I'm going to stay with it. Carapace, one of. I generally like to play two of in a deck, but when you play Utopia Shard and have logos, I don't think it's necessary. Some might argue that I wouldn't even need one playing Utopia Shard, but I prefer to just keep it a little safe. There's a lot of meat damage going on nowadays, so I'll just play a little safe for now, and maybe I'll change my mind later, but not at the current time. 3 Underworld Contacts, fun card to play. I've always loved this card, but just was never enough to justify the deck slots. Yeah, I just could never justify. Like, I could get it going generally as a decent engine, but it was always hard, like I said, to make it fit. I always felt like playing other cards was just better. This deck is different because I'm not leaning only on the Underworld Contacts as a primary way of making income. I have several ways of either making money or saving money, including daily casts. I can put this in for $1 and make $7 from it, or I might just put it down right away. Data folding, again, putting it in for $1 to make X amount of turns left in the game. I mean, it's very, very strong. I almost never ever go below 2 MU the way this deck is built, so I'm practically always getting paid on these. Dirty Laundry was a way to, again, make my opening hand a little bit easier to play. It's giving me more ability to maybe access the R&D in the opening turn if they leave it open, or if they build a remote server that they think they can sneak an agenda on. I might Dirty Laundry that. It gives me a little bit of now money too, where a lot of my deck is built to sort of pay me over time. This can help me make, $3, do something like access a card, or trash something, make that money back, and then maybe install a daily cast or something. So it's a great card still, and again, it's really nice to have it in the opening hand to take some pressure off and still be able to make some money. And of course, Sure Gamble, saved the best for last. Still the best opening hand card in Andy. Always love to see it. Just some closing thoughts on the deck in terms of play style. Definitely in your opening hand, you want to see a Supplier and Sure Gamble, or a Dirty Laundry, or all the above if you can. An early Logos is really strong, but I think the Supplier is probably the best card to have in your opener, followed by Sure Gamble. And then if you can get a Dyson mem chip early, that's really strong, because now you can guarantee that your econ's going to fire with Underworld and data folding. So that's kind of what you're looking for early. Fairies will help you put early pressure on. Overminds will help you put early pressure on. Inside jobs will help you put early pressure on. And that's what you want to do. You want to play a fast, aggressive game early with, inside job runs, fairy runs, ways to keep pressure on, to slow them down. So that way, snipe an agenda here or there. So that way they have to go find new agendas, build remote servers while you're building your econ, and basically the longer the game goes, the longer you can extend it, the more likely you are to win. So that's what you're trying to do, play fast early, but then also set up inevitability with your econ and your breakers. So anyway, it works. It's a great deck. I love it. It's one of my favorite decks I've ever built. So hopefully you enjoy it, and I can't wait to hear your comments. Take care. Over and out.